37%.
Correct.
Are you disincentivized to work harder?
No.
Well, there you go.
I'm sorry. I did use Graham's honesty to a fault policy to drive home a point a couple times in this conversation because he's too honest. He's not like a right-wing charlatan. He is honest to a fault.
People call me a commie, socialist, champagne socialist, and I'm saying Chinese-style communist takeover, eminent domain. That's mine now. You guys that up. We're taking every single person from Skid Row and we're putting them into that luxury high-rise condominium. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Perfect solution. I don't have investments.
Why?
So I think that was a major L for me, I guess, but because I'm so stubborn, I just, I can't shut the up. And I should have grifted a little bit. I think one of the worst things that I ever said in my career was openly admitting that no.
Hasan, thank you so much for coming on the Iced Coffee Hour. Everyone loved the first episode. We really appreciate it.
It was great. Honestly, I don't really get a lot of opportunity to just like talk without chat going 1,000 miles an hour on the side yelling at me. So it's like I always appreciate it. Plus, you guys did one thing that I really genuinely appreciated, which was fact check me, which ironically enough, of course, I was factually correct, but it was good. I appreciated that you guys were like, I would like draw up some numbers from Top Dome, and then you guys would be like, blip,
Dude,
right
you were
there.
on it.
That was
With a lot
impressive.
of your facts and figures.
Yeah.
Most people always think that I'm just, rattling off numbers without knowing what the hell I'm talking about.
No, I'm sure a lot of people do, but yeah, our editor was
Yeah.
great in that, and they just got all the supporting evidence and sources and everything, so it was impressive.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We offered you a Starbucks, and you said you couldn't drink it, and here I am with a Starbucks.
You said you'd get canceled.
I would. Well, it's kind of funny that you guys immediately, as soon as I came in, you were like, "Do you want this water?" I was like, "No, I'm good."
It's not a setup, by the way. This is not on
I know.
purpose.
Which is funny because I'm drinking a Mountain Dew on my Pepsi.
Yeah.
I was in Australia like last week. It wasn't even an altercation. It was like a fan who came up to me and was like, "Oh, you're drinking Coke Zero. You need to stop drinking Coke Zero on stream. Like you support BDS, which is boycott, divestments, and sanctions against Israel. Why are you doing that? Like are you a supporter of Israel? Like why are you doing that? Like, be a better ally to Palestinians." And then I thought that was like a random, it was like a quick back and forth. I was just like, I laughed it off and I was like, haha, okay. Like, oh, is Pepsi okay? I was joking around because it's not actually a part of the official BDS sanction list. Like any other sanctioned companies, like Coca-Cola is not one of them. And I didn't want to get into a debate on stream with a fan. You know what I mean? I feel like that's just long and convoluted for no reason. But then they clipped it and then they posted it on Reddit and posted it all on Twitter. And they were like, Hasan is like, look at him, like woke guy gets owned by his own audience. Like this is how goofy the left is and blah, blah, blah. It made it to Sky News Australia. Rupert Murdoch owned, just like Fox News. Sky News Australia made that into news. It has like 750,000 views on YouTube right now.
So what was like the agenda with Sky News? Like why did they turn that into news?
Oh, they were like, lefties losing it. This is Hasan, dude. He's in Australia. Like, we don't have enough crazies in the country. That's what they were saying. I think the larger agenda overall is to just be like, let's not talk about Israel-Palestine. Let's talk about how crazy the left is. Why are they crazy? Because, they want you to stop drinking Coke and don't talk about anything that's going on in Gaza. Just talk about how crazy the left is. I think this is a distraction to like move discourse in a different direction.
One thing to change the pace is we've had a broad range of people on our podcast recently, and this question is really interesting because we get a wide variety of answers based off of the person's politics usually. If you're poor in America today with no dependents, no disability, cognitive or physical, and you're between the ages of 25 and 60, is it your fault?
No. Wait, what do you mean? Wait, sorry. Say it again.
If you're poor.
If you're poor?
Between the ages of 25 and 60, no disabilities, no dependents, cognitive or physical, is it your fault?
No.
And why?
We are a product of our own material conditions or environment.
She should be boycotting Coke. Shut up, dumbass. I'm not going to boycott Coke, okay? I didn't boycott Coke for executing labor leaders in Colombia. I'm not going to boycott Coke because some TikTok Zoomer thought that it was a valid boycott target, okay? Jesus Christ. So annoying. It's been a boycott target in the UK for ages, asshole. I don't give a what the UK Brits think is a boycott target, yeah, mate? The official BDS list doesn't have Coke on a boycott. I don't care, mate. That's my take. Mentioning the UK, he was asking for the accent. Yeah, I mean, he was. Every time you bring up the Coke clip, you have a couple chatters telling you to boycott like clockwork. Yeah, 1/3 of the world drinks Coke products. There's no way to boycott them. No, but that's not even the point. Like, if it was a part for good, valid reasons, if it was a part of the national boycott list by the BDS, then I would boycott it then. You know what I mean? It would make me sad because I love Coke, but it's not.
And I do think that there is severe income inequality in this country still. There's not a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of racial inequality in this country still. I don't think that someone who was born into like drastically different conditions, like in Flint, Michigan, or in Detroit, or in, you know, forgotten parts of the country like the Appalachian region, like in West Virginia. I don't think that person's starting point is identical to someone who grew up in a nice neighborhood in Connecticut and had access to public schools or even private schools, and their parents were able to afford healthcare. Their parents were able to afford the best education for them possible, a middle class education, but still a much better one overall. So I think that there's that aspect to it. There are a lot of people who do not get that leg up that shouldn't even really be a leg up. It should be the bottom, basically, like social safety nets that are offered to every single person unconditionally so that we can be a more productive labor force overall.
McDonald's is an official BDS target. You're wrong. And Puma is also an actual boycott target. But McDonald's is an official BDS target because they Israeli McDonald's openly was like, oh yeah, are you doing genocide and feel famished? Well, you know, enjoy a Big Mac. So people getting mad at Dua Lipa for McDonald's is not wrong. I mean, guys, they showed the boycott targets right here. Like, now, of course, it doesn't really matter because like it's franchised and the Israeli McDonald's is like totally separate from the rest of the Mickey D's out there. But that's why it's not one of the active boycott targets, but like rather an organic boycott target. Does that make sense? Organic boycott targets. The BDS movement did not initiate these grassroots boycott campaigns, but supports them due to these brands' complicity in Israel's genocide against Palestinians. There you go. That's the difference between organic targets. Notice how the organic targets don't feature Coca-Cola? There's a reason for it. Wait, McDonald's said them actual exact words? No, dude, McDonald's didn't. McDonald's Israel didn't say, oh, do you love doing genocide in Gaza? Please have a burger. They didn't say that. They just said we're supporting the IDF by giving them free food, which it seems like McDonald's bought back the Israeli restaurants. Jesus Christ. It's not a Starbucks at Target. It's not on there. No, it technically isn't. But I talked about the Starbucks thing before. It literally is not worth the headache because Zoomers are so caught up in it. Who gives a shit is my opinion on it. Okay. And I say this as someone who also consumed a ton of Starbucks, but the Starbucks one technically is more valid than the Coca-Cola one. Why? Because Starbucks corporate literally fired a bunch of union workers, like ones that were trying to unionize originally, for wearing a pro-Palestinian pin. That is the reason why Starbucks is universally despised by everyone. Most activists, you ask, if you were to be like, oh, do you know why people want to boycott Starbucks in its complicity for Israeli genocide? They would not be able to give you the actual answer. I can. The reason is what I just stated, which is ironic because that boycott did actually force the mother corporation's hand to a certain degree because it was an additional vein of external pressure that literally forced Starbucks corporate to actually meet the union's demands. But of course, Zoomers don't know anything, so it doesn't matter. Sometimes, in order to clear the headaches that it will bring about for myself from the left, I just choose to shut the up. But there is a length to where I will shut the up when it gets to my Diet Coke, my sweet, precious Diet Coke, my nectar of the gods. I also don't want to get ahead of the organic boycotts that people get mad at because it is good. Like, it just shows that people are at least like trying to do their very best. That's why I don't sharp about this boycott shit as much and never even talked about the Coke stuff either until it became national news. It's so goddamn frustrating that the right wing forced my hand into talking about it. Okay? That's it. That's the issue for me. I think all the people that are like trying the boycott shit even if they're doing unproductive stuff overall, still have their mind on the right, still have their heart on the right place, in the right place. That's my take. It brings a tear to my eye when I hear about Zoomers in the it brings a tear to my eye when I see Zoomers in the Snapchat being like, "Kai, don't drink Starbucks publicly." Anyway,
and then beyond that, I think we're all victims of circumstance in one way or another, and I think poverty in that regard is almost always systemic.
So whose responsibility is it for these people to not be poor?
Oh, I think it's the government's responsibility for sure. I think it's a policy failure overall. I mean, poor is relative, obviously, because a poor person in America is infinitely better off than a poor person in Rwanda, right? So if we're talking about poverty in America, if we're talking about that, we're comparing it to like whatever the middle is, right? Like below the middle. We're talking about elevating every single person and ensuring that their needs are met. It's still up to the system to provide them with the social safety nets, with the amenities, with the means to achieve some kind of fulfillment for themselves.
So what sort of policies do you think need to be in place to prevent that or help the situation?
I think right across the board, flattening out education is definitely one of the first things I believe. I mean, healthcare is really important. Properly feeding people is really important. I mean, we have child poverty in this country. We have issues with food security in this country. There are millions of families that still lack access to proper nutrition. That's one of the major hurdles, even in schooling, which is not what you would think. But I mean, something as simple as like having AC in your school can yield much better results for educational outcomes in general. And I think those are some of the most glaring, most obvious systematic failures in this country.
So when you say evening out schools, do you mean things like having computers and AC, or do you mean is it
computers,
like an educational
AC,
standard?
food, higher educational standard in general? A lot of that is fixed with resources. I don't think we pay enough for our teachers, for example. I think teachers are like grossly.
I was there for a long ass time, for like 3 hours. Thank God I can't tell you what I believe. It was capitalism, right? Says in gold shirt. Hasan doesn't have any idea how to affect change. A gold, bro, you're really stupid, man. I'm sorry. My haters, you gotta try a little bit harder, dude. Thank God he was there for 3 hours, which implies that what he's saying right now doesn't reflect his actual statements. Dude, you're hallucinating. Okay? You think I'm wearing a gold shirt? Brother, your mental health episode in the chat is not everybody else's problem. Take your medication, okay? State your belief. Listen to the podcast, I guess.
Underpaid in this country. The standards are also very low in general as well. I think like the quality's gotten worse and worse year over year. I think this has like become basically a job of passion. Like nobody's becoming a teacher because they're like, I'm going to make a lot of money. They're becoming teachers because they're like, this is what I want to do. I genuinely want to do
Couldn't
this.
you make an argument that that's a good thing?
No, I don't think that it's a good thing. I think that's a bad thing.
You think it's better that people say, I'm going to get rich because I could be a teacher?
Not rich, but I want to be comfortable financially. And that's why I want to be a teacher is a good thing. I think overall, money is a great motivator for these sorts of things. That's why if you look at a country like Finland, for example, where they have a much higher, much better education structure specifically for teachers. They're revered as like they're treated like lawyers almost, and they yield significantly better educational outcomes overall across the board. And most of it is public.
So what advice would you give those people who are poor between the ages of 20 to 60, who are a victim of circumstance? What would you tell those people?
Get your money up, not your funny up. No, I mean, there is a lot you can do, obviously. There's a lot you can do in general, but like overall, I would, I don't know. I mean, I feel like,
is it a lost cause?
I don't think it's a lost cause necessarily, but I also don't think that like, scheming in certain ways or trying to develop passive income or whatever is going to be the solution for every single person. Like, oh, you're going to become an entrepreneur and then you're going to start making money ultimately, because there's plenty of people who try that and fail over and over again and never actually make it. I had to live a fairly ascetic lifestyle for a big chunk of my early 20s after college. I mean, I lived in the kitchen of a frat house, right? And I had 2 jobs at the same time. I was in the lowest tax bracket possible, making literally less than minimum wage because I had a sales position. So it was like, my bosses beforehand were able to get away with underpaying me in that regard, because it's like I have to bring in commission on top of that. I was budgeting all the time in order not to get in the red. Still got in the red, overdraft fees, all that stuff. I mean, it was terrible. I still made it through.
So
but I
as
think
someone who's made it through, I feel like you should have valuable advice to people that are stuck in that position.
Well, I made it through because I'm lucky though. I made it through because
you don't think it had anything to do with the amount of time you were working? Because you've gone on the record and said
I worked very hard, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's just luck still, I think, is a really significant factor in people achieving success. Working very hard is also important. Not to say that, like, I'm not discounting people that become profoundly successful by saying, oh, it's all just luck, because it's not. You have to work very, very hard. But there are people who work very hard every day. You have teachers in Oklahoma that teach all day, and then after work is done, they have to take an Uber job.
What ratio would you give luck? Do you think that was 20%, 50%, 60%?
I don't know if I can give like an exact number, because I think it changes for every single person. Some people are 30% lucky, some people are 50%.
In your situation,
lucky.
though?
In my situation, I think luck played probably 50% of the way.
Half?
Yeah, for sure. Because listen, I was born into an affluent family. I got great education as a consequence of that. Now, that didn't really translate to living in America because it was in Turkey, but it still doesn't matter, because like, I didn't have the financial setbacks that a much poorer person would, like having to work a job when you're going to high school, right? Like, I didn't have to take care of my parents when I was going to high school. I could just focus on my studies, even though I didn't really study that much either.
But can you
know what's really funny? Am I crazy? How do people watch this? The Purdue chicken story sounds so comically evil that I had to look into it myself. It's just hilarious how it just sounds ridiculous enough that it should exist in a work of fiction about evil corporations. It is kind of funny to consider that, like, when the podcast first came out, people were so mad, and they immediately mass disliked it, which is why you should go and show support to the pod, by the way. It is sitting at 2.4K likes, 2.5K dislikes. Not a single one of those people in the 2.5K that disliked that watch the pod, because there is 0% chance. There's just no way. It just gets brigaded to shit. That's it. Nobody wants to legitimately. Don't you think that's a good thing, though? I don't bring up anything in this. Oh, Destiny reacted to it on stream. That makes sense. Yeah, I saw the comments on release. Okay, I saw the comments on release originally, and the comments on release were literally 5 minutes in. They were like, I hate this guy. I hate this guy. You should literally, you shouldn't platform this guy. He's a piece. And it's so obvious that not a single person, some of them say you didn't mention D, but I did halfway through. Oh yeah, I did mention Destiny. They brought him up. So that's perhaps why, saying this was literally, by the way, this came out straight up right after the video came out. These comments I remember. Saying it's the government's responsibility to make sure people aren't poor is just wild. It's every individual's own responsibility to better their own life. Let's outsource our results of responsibility to the government. Great idea. Yeah, sorry, you just lost me with this one. Giving Hasan a platform is a huge no-no. You still have time to delete this. Yeah, go watch it, by the way. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. It's actually very good. And the best part about it is that I think podcasts like this one are not only good to broaden people's horizons or whatever. I do think that podcasts like this one are pretty good. Why focus on the hate? It was a good video and you know it. Dude, I'm explaining something important here. Like, obviously this hate is not born out of nothing. I'm showing how stupid it is to just like hate. I think people who don't know you are just like, ew, an opinionated white man, and they think you are self-righteous, but they don't actually listen to the meat of the conversation. Sure. You will enjoy the video if you watch it, for sure. But more importantly than that, you can also show this type of video to your friends, because it is a perfect situation where I reach like I get a decent amount of pushback, from people who don't agree with me, but are fair. Okay. Do you understand? And because there isn't like other, drama baity perverts involved in the process, This is an unfiltered conversation that you can show to your friends when they ask, who are you watching? Do you think a right winger is going to watch 2 hours of you talking? No. But you know who will? Your friends who despise me. Okay? If you have friends that are like, I hate this piece, here are the million reasons why. I basically have described, I basically address so many of the things because they bring it up. That's what it is. Habib, you trying to get a friend to watch a 2 hour, 30-minute is like Megaphonics? No, you don't have to get them to watch the whole thing. There's time codes. If I have friends, I'm gonna stop you right there. Definitely fair. One of D's criticism was the host didn't grill you enough. I have 2 questions. Why the are you watching Destiny watch this podcast? Number 2, what is he expecting them to do? Be like, why aren't you a evil Muslim Islamist fundamentalist monster? I'm shocked that the host didn't have such rabid Islamophobic perspectives that he holds. That's insane.
You also say that someone else in your situation could say, I don't need to work that hard. I don't need to do much because I'm already kind of set. So I'm just going to chill and do the bare minimum.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely much different trajectories for someone like myself, especially from my background. But I would say that like that motivation, I had a great upbringing. I love, I have a very healthy relationship with my family. I think that is luck. That's what I mean when I talk about luck. It's that like I had
came across really well. There's a cottage industry of people who despise you, and it's about overcoming that. And you've become a soft touch. It's the same criticism when you answer them on this podcast. They just don't want you because they don't want their beliefs changed. Yeah, literally. That's what it is.
a great upbringing. It didn't translate to like me having any sort of money when I was on my own after college, but it still doesn't matter.
But before we get into that, AI actually might just be the most important new computer technology.
Okay.
How could you cloud?
And
of course, it's with the
first life. There was, and you were like, we're all about
to enjoy.
you were talking about idolizing the American life, and all you ever wanted to do was go to college in America. That was like what you aspired to do.
Yeah.
There was something where like people in foreign cultures, like not fetishize, but like idolize America. And you were like definitely one of those people. Do you think the American dream is dead now since you've came to America and you kind of like idolize the American dream, the white picket fence and going to college here?
My idealization of the American dream began and ended at like being able to go to college and party. And, so like I didn't have like a broader understanding of it. There were definitely a lot of moments throughout American history where it wasn't all that real regardless. But especially as of late, I feel like people's financial opportunities have worsened overall. I mean, it's very much alive if you are lucky to a certain degree. And also on top of that, come from a better financial circumstance. If you're like upper middle class, or, well, I guess everybody considers themselves to be upper middle class. That
honestly, I think that hate farming you is partly so easy, low risk for these people because you don't claim people. If people didn't want anyone else, if people did anyone else the way people do to you, it would become a problem with copyright claims, I feel. Definitely not saying you should do. No, I'm not going to do that. It's almost as if having no secrets is the most absolute terrifying thought for people with trying to gotcha moments. The honesty in this interview freaks out online weirdos with their browser histories that they're ashamed of. Yeah, they don't believe it. They think that there's like additional secrets that I'm hiding. That's number one. But here's the thing, guys. A lot of people have made up their minds on this, and they've made up their misguided preconceptions. If you value yourself to be an independent thinker, watch the video without any interruption on your own, without me guiding you, without me holding your hand, or without Destiny holding your hand. Watch it on your own. If you're a adult, you should be able to watch a podcast on 2X if you want and make up your own mind. Maybe you will feel like the previous ways in which people have treated this subject matter is probably not right. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people that won't even give you a chance because the amount of hate content that is cut against you, people that don't know, you will see like 30 other content creators telling them you're a monster and they'll just believe it. Exactly. I just need to do more, I need to reach out a broader market like this more frequently.
That categorization is very broad. But if you come from a relatively affluent background, like there are opportunities for you to get upward social mobility. And I guess that is the American dream after all, be able to own a house and whatnot. But beyond that, that window that is open for Americans for upward social mobility is like shrinking. The number of people that can actually have a better financial situation overall than their parents is getting smaller and smaller, in my opinion.
Why do you think that is? What's causing that?
Wealth disparity is growing. in this country. The wealthiest people are getting wealthier and wealthier. I would even factor myself into that as well. The way I describe it is this. COVID is a great example. COVID recovery. During COVID recovery, there was a lot of upwards wealth transfer. A lot of people couldn't work. The government gave them money for a little bit, and there was unemployment insurance, which was great. But that dried up. And then there was a shortage of jobs as well, where people were like, oh, nobody wants to go back to work anymore. In that entire time frame, we had what is known as a K-shaped recovery, where the top 1% of wealth kept growing absolutely in a seismic way, whereas the rest of the 99% did not experience those same returns. They did not, their wealth did not grow overall. And then we had inflation as well, which made things even worse. Real negative wage growth for at least almost 2 years under the Biden administration, especially, is like something that people are not willing to forget. And why should they? It's understandable that they don't. They remember it.
Can we get a quick, maybe 2 or so minute explanation of who you are for the viewers if it's their first time hearing from you?
I'm Hasan Piker.
By the way, thank you for not emphasizing your views came from material socialist POV in this video. It made it a lot more digestible for my right-wing adjacent mates who all love Graham. I mean, that is the whole point. Haters definitely did not watch the pod. You're literally pulling up hard data. I always pull up hard data. It's just so easy to discount it. If you clip my live streams, if you clip my live stream and criticize it, then it's much easier than clipping my YouTube videos where the hard data is shown by my editors. That's the whole. I always add data to my arguments.
I am a Turkish-American political commentator. I stream on Twitch every day. I have a YouTube page, TikTok, I have it all. Came to the United States of America when I was 18 years old. I grew up in Turkey. And I studied political science communication. First, I went to University of Miami, transferred to Rutgers, graduated from Rutgers with honors. And then I got a job. I was looking for jobs like crazy after college. Didn't mean anything because I did not have like the networking opportunities or the relationships that like other people had at the time with other companies that they could normally work at. So I worked for my uncle as a salesperson at the Young Turks. Some of you might know that. It was at the time a 26-person like independent news YouTube channel, and I built their entire advertisement, sales, and operations, all the back end, did all the cold calling for a couple of years. And during that process, while I was doing that, I was like, this sucks. I hate this. I hate sales. I want to do content, and because I wanted to do content, I was like, you know what? I'll do this for free. There's a studio that isn't really a studio at the Young Turk studio. There was a closet basically. And I was like, I'm going to put a green screen here and I'm going to do a very different type of content that you guys don't do. I'm going to do teleprompted, pre-scripted segments. And, I'll do it for free. I'll do it on my off hours when I'm not working, and it'll be free money for you guys basically. You know what I mean? More bang for your buck. First, they were resistant. Then they were like, sure, whatever, why not? And I sucked at it too. I wasn't good at all. But I kept doing it over and over and over again. I got better at it eventually. And then I moved over to handle our Facebook operations at the Young Turks. I had a very successful show called The Breakdown that I had created. It was right around the same time as Facebook was opening up video as an initiative. So there was like tens of millions of views to be had on each video.
You're here to show their asses with this take too, because they just don't seem to understand the networking aspect of college, which is what you were referring to. Yeah.
And it was blowing up a lot. So that's what I did. And then I realized a couple of years in that I wanted to have something of my own because I had no creative control over it. I didn't have enough autonomy. So I was like, I want to do something on my own. First, I pushed people to my Instagram. Then I decided I'm going to go on this platform called Twitch. Leftist ideology was underrepresented in that space at the time. This is like Gamergate, post-Gamergate era for the oldies in the chat that know what that is. There wasn't a lot of like people who were like, I'm a socialist or I'm a leftist, I'm a progressive, and I'm a gamer. So I went in there playing Fortnite, strapped the PlayStation eye camera to my PlayStation 4, started playing Fortnite. I'll play Fortnite with like other journalists as well and other podcasters as well at the time. While we talk about stuff like Israel, Palestine. By 2020, I went full-time, became a full-time Twitch streamer. And then COVID happened and the George Floyd protests happened. And a lot of people started catching up to my politics, especially as it pertains to police brutality. And I was there doing live coverage every day. And then the election cycle happened. And I would say that 2020, I exploded in popularity and have been streaming every single day ever since I went full time.
And how would you describe your political ideology as a label?
I don't really like labels when it comes to political ideology. People call me a commie, socialist, champagne socialist, leftist. I would say, a progressive person who believes that everyone should be able to pursue a life of dignity and find free moments and have some autonomy and have a sense of purpose in their own lives. So whatever achieves that is what I want.
The main thing that people have, the main problem they have with, I feel like, that ideology is the taxes. That's like one of the main things. What do you think would be a fair tax bracket in the highest percentage, or just a fair tax bracket structure for you?
Our highest tax rate is pretty bad in America overall, but I also, more importantly, think that the way we tax is really bad in general. I think that a lot of Americans are taxed on their wealth, their assets, without recognizing it, unless you have a lot of money in the stock market, in which case you're paying a much lower percentage in your taxes in your overall net worth across the board. What do I mean by this? What is it, like 40% of Americans own their own home, right?
Something like that.
Something around those lines.
50, it's like, yeah, somewhere.
Many of those Americans are paying property taxes. That's their primary wealth accumulation. That's their nest egg.
It was 40% of Americans in California. I looked it up. See, it's 66 across the board. 45% in the state of California.
That is what they can take mortgages out against, or used to be able to take mortgages out against. Not anymore. Not as much right now. But that is what they see as their future, right? And those guys all get taxed on their wealth, whereas there is a shit ton of wealth specifically that is left uncaptured in the stock market. So while I do think that our tax brackets could go a little bit higher for sure, I think overall, trying to tax.
I get why you don't call yourself a socialist. People directly ignore you if you do. I notice this when talking to people in real life. They're open to listen to you, but once you tell them you're a socialist, they start to look at you differently. You cannot single-handedly overcome a decade of Red Scare propaganda. People have hang-ups on the word socialism, but if you describe to them what you actually believe, and you shouldn't lie about what you actually believe. I'm not advocating that you lie about your genuine beliefs. Did I say decade? I meant a century. Sorry. Obviously, I meant century. A century. Anti-socialist Red Scare propaganda is impossible to overcome in normal conversations. Do not lie about your genuine positions and your genuinely held convictions and beliefs. But if you're having a normal conversation, you don't have to literally be like, I'm a socialist immediately from the jump. There's no need to label yourself. Most Americans, one, don't know what political labels actually represent, and two, hate political labels anyway.
Just straight up income is not the end of
I think it's better to just come out of the door swinging, but tough words people get used to hearing. More people call themselves socialists. I just think it is ridiculous. You don't have to. It plays no role in this conversation.
The deal. I think we need to fix our wealth taxes as well. Start taxing
wealth
assets.
tax.
I don't know what the exact number would be. I genuinely don't know.
Would you fall in the wealth tax?
I don't really have a lot of assets. I already pay income. Like I pay everything off income, straight income. So in California, living here, I'm in the highest tax bracket. So I'm paying around like 50% of more than 50%.
More than 50%.
And if you include property tax and sales tax and all these other taxes, capital gains tax.
Yeah, even before all of that. Yeah. But I mean, I am perfectly fine with increasing the highest tax rate as well, which would, yes, definitely impact me.
Although, you know what? Before we go into that, we got to do some quick math, because the less money your business spends, the more money you get to keep.
But with higher expenses on materials, employees, distribution, and borrowing, everything's costing more.
So to reduce costs and headaches, smart businesses are upgrading to our sponsor, NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system that brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one platform and one source of truth.
With NetSuite, you reduce IT costs because it lives in the cloud with no hardware required, and you can access it from anywhere.
You could also cut the cost of maintaining multiple systems because you've got one unified business.
Bro, 2 hours and 30 minutes, and they got fucking hella ads in this.
60%. Do you feel like people would say, there's really no point in me working that much harder because I'm only going to keep 40 cents on the dollar?
No, I don't think that this is.
I think people have.
Wait, I mean, you get taxed at that rate. Do you think?
No, I don't.
No, we
No,
moved to
37%. 37%.
Yeah.
Okay,
is what
but
I'm
look,
taxed
regardless,
at.
you still get the federal 37%.
Correct.
Are you disincentivized to work harder?
No.
Well, there you go.
I'm sorry. I did use Graham's honesty to a fault policy to drive home a point a couple times in this conversation because he's too honest. He's not like a right-wing charlatan. He is honest to a fault. It's not even a debate. I'm not trying to like debate him or anything. I am genuine about my beliefs, and I think that like I'm trying to basically get him to come to that conclusion as well personally, because he's not a grifter. I don't think Graham is a grifter. I think he legitimately believes everything he says. When was his film? Like last week or 2 weeks ago? I don't know. A couple of weeks ago? 2-3 weeks ago?
But there's,
No,
I think
but
there's a
you know
real
what? But-
difference when you go above 50%. I
Yes.
think people really have a negative reaction when it's over 50.
I would say 50
I
to
don't.
50 to 60%. I would incentivize a lot of business spending just because I didn't want to get taxed on it. So I would say that would be the only thing. But beyond a certain point, I probably would be disincentivized. Beyond a certain point, it's
Unless-
60% is just
If the goods that you're being provided from the government are just so good from
That's a great point. I was
Then-
about to say that.
then I would be okay with it. But I know for a fact, let's just say I make $100,000 or something, 50% I cut to the federal government. I feel like I get maybe like $2,000, $3,000 worth of value back, which is what,
Not even.
6%?
Not even.
And if I spent the 50,000, I would get 1-to-1 value to dollar spent.
No, I completely understand what you're saying about that. I mean, unless you're talking about like, money being spent on roads and stuff, which I think is good. It's not like you don't see it as like a direct return.
Right. Well, the roads also aren't the greatest.
Yeah, but precisely. You are absolutely correct. You nailed it. That is the biggest problem in this country.
good for you,
I think the
Jack.
biggest problem in this country isn't necessarily the taxes, because I have this conversation with my European friends all the time. I have some lovely friends who were visiting from France recently. We sat down, we're having this dinner, and they were shocked when I just started describing to them the American tax structure. They were like, what? Like, we thought you guys don't pay any taxes at all. You have no amenities for it. You have nothing to show for it. Because unfortunately, our spending is awful in this country. It's awful. A lot of it goes into, I guess, subsidies that you don't necessarily see that are keeping the economic engine running. That's for sure. A lot of it goes to defense. And we have so much money that we get, even in a place like California, for example, where we had an $88 billion surplus in the state, and yet we have nothing to show for it in terms of the roads, in terms of, public health initiatives, in terms of overall quality of life for the average citizen. People might look at that and go, oh, it's because they're giving it to immigrants or whatever. That's not the case. In a lot of instances, there are middlemen who know someone in government and they get these fat contracts and they hold it up, and they don't do the actual, infrastructural development that they were tasked with doing when it comes to creating affordable housing. There are a lot of initiatives to combat homelessness. We talked about this a little bit last time. Those initiatives get funded. We vote for it in ballot measures, right? They're very popular. In Los Angeles County, we added an extra 5% taxes on sales of homes that are over $5 million. Everybody voted for it. They loved it. They're like, great, let's do it. That raised a shit ton of money. But that money doesn't go back into like actual direct initiatives. It just stays there. It just stays
My
there in the
understanding is that
ether.
they projected it was going to make way more money than it actually ended up making. And so what ended up happening, just from a real estate perspective, everyone sold their house prior to this going into effect. After it went into effect, you had so many listings that were like 5.5.
Yeah.
They just priced it $4,995.
Yeah.
Or they'd sell furniture separately.
And doesn't
so
it also dry up the market a little bit?
it dried
too?
up the market completely.
Yeah.
But the result was that I think they thought it was going to bring in like $800 million over 5 years or something, but it ended up bringing in a fifth of that. I'm sure we could put up the numbers here.
And we don't know
but
where
it
it
was-
goes. Is
But
the
that's the
problem.
point.
But it
But
just
that's still a lot of
completely-
money.
But
and
it crippled the market. Just imagine if those homes would be able to be freely bought and sold.
That commerce would generate a lot of revenue.
Right. And
Dude, they this is why I said they're real ones. For like, they love that shit, dude. They love that shit. A market of $5 million houses, bro, you'd be shocked. We're talking about Los Angeles. It is not a small market, for the record. It's a big market, as a matter of fact. The real question is, how do they get to $5 million to begin with? Considering that the house that I'm in would never be going for 2.75 in any other marketplace. You will, the real problem isn't like the $5 million market. The real problem is how those houses became $5 million, which I should have mentioned.
I think too, with increased property taxes or the type of person buying those $5+ million homes, what could they contribute that could be greater than what this tax generated?
You mentioned something really interesting. I think it was on our podcast with Anna about some guy that was renting a vacant warehouse.
I think we talked about that.
Oh, did we talk about that with you?
Yeah.
Did we talk about
Yeah,
this? I don't remember.
So this
could've
is
been
just
something-
another prime example of just
Yeah, so exactly what you
contracts.
mentioned. There was supposed to be a homeless shelter in downtown Los Angeles, and there's this big expose about it because it's been vacant for like 7 years at this point, and they're spending $50,000 a month for this homeless shelter. So why is it empty for 7 years? Well, it turned out that they couldn't build it because it had a foundation issue, but they're trying to figure.
Hasanabi is absolutely correct with this. There are pools of billions of dollars that have been untouched, literally unspent, because boards of directors at agencies and district supervisors don't direct the money to proper initiatives and agencies because they are undemocratic. I don't know if I was able to drive home that argument, though. That was my major argument here, though, is that the major argument that I was making was that there is funding for it, but there isn't a willingness to follow through. And the reason I did mention it, actually,
it
I'm
out.
pretty
So
sure.
until then, they had a signed lease, and they just kept the lease agreement going. Well, when they dug,
It's not that rich people lack urgency. You're wrong. Rich people very urgently, as a matter of fact, stop these initiatives. No, the problem is it goes against their capital interest. That's the problem. That's why they immediately push and try to stop these initiatives from working. I bring up the Project Home Key issues in a little bit.
into it, the person who signed the lease was like a former business associate or friend with the person who was in charge of finding the homeless shelter. And so it seems as though they did this backdoor deal. It's like, hey, I'll give you 50 grand a month for this place. We good? All right, let's do that. And nothing. The money just goes to waste.
Not even remotely shocking to me. There's a lot of corruption that happens like that, and I think that's a major issue. I mean, think about like high-speed rail development in this state. It's been ongoing since like the 80s. China, since like 2001, has laid down an entire continent worth of high-speed rail over the course of such a short period of time. When there's a will, there's a way. They did it with much less money than we're working with, right? That level of corruption is more so about just like people making money off of government spending. And the government has a lot of money, so they're willing to throw money in that direction because they can tell their constituents, hey, it's out of our hands. We threw money at this problem. I want enforcement. I also, ironically, I guess, I want Chinese style enforcement. I'm like, oh yeah, you're doing that? That's great. You're going to jail. Like, where's the fucking homeless shelter? You're going to jail. You didn't build it? All right, sorry. We're going to prosecute you.
I think we need to be harsher on punishments. And I also have this idea. I brought it up our last podcast, and I want to know your opinion on it. I think there needs to be a
Lowell, you want his the role? No, but I do think that there should be criminal consequences for criminals behaving in, criminal ways. Is that crazy? Well, sorry, lock me up, officer. I've advocated to actually be tough on crime for once. My bad. Didn't realize when the collar is white, we don't consider that to be real crime.
massive. What was the term?
You said 10,000
10,000 accountants in the government.
Yes.
That sole job is to internally audit, which I know we already do, and you can already access this information, but it's horrible. It is unattractive. And it's also, I feel like, just like for the average person, you're not going to go in and read this crazy complex UI of how our budget is spent. But if we had 10,000,
I agree.
you know what? No,
Like an HOA
20,000 accountants that internally audit the federal government just to show everyone, hey, we're spending $22 per muffin at this random bureaucratic agency or what, doesn't matter. I want to know about it.
The way that the American government works also is like it's always dished out to like private contractors, and those are the guys who are making those are the guys who are making buku bucks over there when they're just it's the greatest grift of all. You know what I mean? Whether it's defense contractors or whether it's anything else, like they get so much money. And like I said, it's a way for politicians to be like, see, we're spending money, like we're doing the thing that you wanted us to do, but people don't see any results. and then we just kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that that would be phenomenal. I especially with the Pentagon too. But
So-
you know, you're going to get assassinated by the CIA if you start talking like that.
We had an international arms dealer on the podcast that did U.S. defense contracts. And he said companies like Lockheed Martin, what they used to do is just charge whatever they wanted because there's no competitor and you have the contract and it needs to be a safety protocol. So they only create, you know, the F-35 jets or whatever. But instead what they changed to,
Okay, but the federal penny pinching doesn't. No, you don't understand. I think we should do penny pinching on all aspects of the federal government. The mismanagement is built into the system, including the F-35 program. Yeah, it's not the $16 muffins, but the $16 muffin is definitely a representation of that same exact problem. That's why I kept talking about the military budget as well. Problem is, it's not even just like where the government is contracting out the help to. Everyone is overcharging along the way, every step of the way. The issue also is that we have no mechanisms of enforcement. We have no way of looking at this and going, wait, hold on. What do you mean you didn't build a homeless shelter for 5 years? I'm going to literally put you in jail for at least the 5 years that you didn't build a homeless shelter for. Like, even when it gets budgeted out and contracts are signed, there's still setbacks because the real power players don't want that shit to be built.
was cost plus. So it's the cost of building an F-35 plus a fee of how much you spent. So like 3% of the entire cost. But then this incentivizes them to spend twice as much because then they get 6% instead of 3%.
Let me tell you, they're not spending it on their workers either. Okay. They're not, it's not like they're spending it on their engineers either.
I'm not surprised.
I'm sure that you guys have some engineers watching right now that'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's, I guess it goes to the executives or something, maybe marketing initiatives when they turn around and they're like, gay pride parade floaties, Raytheon. But overall,
Look, less than Hasan. Someone goes, as an engineer in defense, yeah, that contract money ain't going to us. How much do you make? Less than Hasan. Less than Graham and Jack, too. It's important not to compare yourself to the top 1% of 1% of content creators. I'm sure an engineer isn't hungry either, though. It's like how Americans cannot fucking stop themselves from infighting. It doesn't matter what the context is. Look, they're eating each other. They're eating each other's asses. Engineers still make more than me. It's like, bro, how do you not understand what you're doing? While you're having that conversation, a rich man made another $1 million, okay? A billionaire put another M in their account. That's what Parasite was about. Crabs in a goddamn bucket, dude. Yeah, it's always... Anyway.
Yes, there's a lot of money out there, and we are not using it in the way that it's intended to be used, and I think that people get hurt as a consequence of that. But my point was that I think a lot of Americans would be a lot happier with the taxes that they're paying if they actually even felt like the government had their back.
But do you feel like a wealth tax is an actual solution to that, or do you feel like that's
I think it goes
unrealistic?
both ways. I think we have to do internal accounting, and I think we also could tax more as well. Like, where there's a lot of assets out there that could be taxed, I think. And you might hate me for saying this, but I do think that we should disincentivize seeing home ownership as a investment vehicle rather than just simple shelter.
I think it's difficult with the housing example because you have people who don't want to own a home, who prefer renting, and there are advantages to renters as well, that they don't have the overhead and the responsibility, and they have the
I don't think anyone, I didn't want to come across like too contentious, but I should have said, like, I don't think anyone who has the opportunity to buy a home would rather rent. Like, I think they would prefer having the stability of home ownership. Did anyone question how do you manage to keep your sanity through all the atrocious shit people say about you? Like, wouldn't be able to function as a person if I was in your position, I think. One thing is this community that I have, that I serve top of the hour ad breaks to all the time at the top of the hour. And that's always fun when I end up doing that. Okay. But also just in general, I am a very fortunate person. I recognize the tremendous luck that I've had in my career. Okay. Lucky enough to be able to serve you 3-minute ad breaks at the top of the hour and tell you that you can avoid them by subscribing for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. But also, almost every single time someone is like pathetically obsessed with being a hater of mine, just look at my watch. Okay, look at my watch, and not in the XQC I own your house in my watch on my wrist type of way. I look at my watch and I look at the time ticking. Until long, it won't take that much time until we find out that they're a sex pest, deviant, file, neo-Nazi. Okay? Now, sometimes all of the above, and sometimes just one of the options. But it always consistently works that way. I don't know, with the exception of like the likes of Ben Shapiro, who is just like a right-wing person. But any one of these, any number of these drama farmers, all these people that make a living off of being like, he's such a piece of shit. Almost every single one of them have outed themselves as like genuine scumbags. All right. So goddamn consistent. Yeah, I met a D-Watcher Ireland. They try to debate the age of consent and incest as not all that bad. Not shocking. It's not surprising. Yeah, I do bring a certain vibe to the function that pedophiles don't with. They don't like the vibes I bring to the table. Are you a Nepo baby associated with Jank Uger? Yes. Not doing the evil Clem. It's going to be Clementine in a second. Venn diagram of Hassan haters and people who debate the age of consent is a damn near a circle. Oh, always. The solution to being homeless is finding a boat, as the goat has always told us. Yeah, Kenny, my man Kenneth. Can you finish the rest tomorrow and play Walking Dead? How do we start off on this? I wanted to show you something. I wanted to show you guys a part of this that I was gonna click on, and I totally forgot. It was about homelessness. I remember.
Oh man, I think squatters are. I mean, they're dope. Like, as long as no one is living there and it's not being put to use, then the fuck's the house doing anyway? It's just a piece of property.
What about damage to a property? What if someone wants to move back into their property and someone's living there and they say, no, you can't kick me out. And they know the legal system to be able to live there for free.
You
for
file
months.
for bankruptcy and then extend your visit for
Wait,
like a
so
year.
you can, if you want to live in a property and like someone else is like, this is my house, like I want to live here, you can just like stop them from
You didn't
living
know
there?
this?
I think that is a little bit trickier.
It's a civil matter. So,
I think it's a little bit trickier in general, but like overall, if it's not like that fucking building in downtown Los Angeles, the one that famously has been tagged into oblivion,
right.
yeah, and people are freaking out over. I'm like, why are there so many fucking buildings that are just like left halfway in limbo and halfway developed? It's like repurpose that. In my opinion,
I was surprised you didn't know about the scam squatters. Yeah, because the only squatters I hear about and cover and know about are like the example that I bring up, which is like the black moms in Oakland. You know what I mean? Like,
if I'm the government, if I'm Governor Gavin Newsom, Gruesome Newsom, I'm coming in and I'm saying Chinese style communist takeover, eminent domain, that shit's mine now. You guys fucked that up. We're making this into permanent shelter. We're taking every single person from Skid Row and every single homeless person, and we're putting them into that fucking luxury high-rise condominium. And not only that, but we're hiring 10,000 new social workers to make sure that we have the proper tools readily equipped so that we can reintegrate these people back into society. And we're going to have all these fucking jobs for them. We're going to make them fix potholes. Okay. They're going to love to do it because they're going to get paid to do it. And we're going to treat their drug addiction. And as a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, perfect fucking solution. What good is a house when it's empty? As an investment vehicle,
so
sure.
you'd give the squatters rights that if someone decides to move into a vacant house without a lease agreement, they could claim that they have a lease and they should be entitled to live there.
It's a little medieval, but look, people need shelter, and I think if they're getting it that way, I think it's like the worst way to solve it.
But if it's medieval, should then the property owner be able to defend their property, go in there and forcibly remove somebody? Just like in medieval times.
It depends entirely on, if we're being serious, I think it depends entirely on like whether they genuinely want to live there or not, right? But overall, I think that, like I said, I personally love discouraging people from home ownership. Like, not home ownership, sorry, but like using homes as a vehicle, as an investment vehicle.
But what if
the
this
funniest
isn't
place to say this?
But what's interesting is that for a lot of the squatters, it's not the property's not used as an investment vehicle. It could be somebody passed away. The house is empty for a week or two while they try to sell it. They go to list the home for sale, and the realtor says, "Hey, there's a whole family living in here."
Is there anyone that hates you that you think is not a genuine piece of shit? I'm sure there are thousands of people that hate me that are not genuine pieces of shit. They just have been misled into thinking that I'm like a genuinely bad guy and have like really violent, awful takes. I personally think that I'm very reasonable overall. Maybe I'm not. Squatting is supported by existing laws. Someone follows those laws in this situation. It sounds like they're exploiting the system properly. Yeah. That's why podcasts like this is great, because you can show them podcasts like this depending on whatever issue they have. And there's obviously timestamps for all of it. There's timestamps for pretty much every issue that we talked about. And you can pick and choose. But anyway, but yeah, great video overall. Go watch it. Give it a view. Share with your friends. I think it does a decent job of covering a shit ton of my perspectives and takes. Yeah.